And welcome everyone. As everyone is starting to come into the webinar, I want to thank you for taking the time today to join us for another live webinar and Q&A with Waterways Technologies. Before I turn over to their executive team, I'd like to quickly go over the format for today and how you can get your questions in to be answered. For anybody here, you'll see a chat function right off the side. Please, we'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Put us your city, country. We'd love to hear from you, and you can talk to other investors there throughout the presentation. There's also right beside the chat function, you'll see Q&A. That's where you can put your questions in there. So whatever questions come into mind throughout this presentation, maybe you had questions already when you first got here, please put them in there. We'll be sure to go through a presentation with their executive team first. And then after that, we'll come back and do the question period where we'll go through as many questions as we can within our 1 hour allotted time slot. Very excited for this. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Ohad Haber and Ronnie Jagerman. Gentlemen, welcome. Very excited for another webinar with you two.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, everybody, to be with us. And for us, it's the second time that we meet. I can guess few of you was before, and the other welcome. We're very, very proud to be in this meeting. And the reason we call that is because we have the half-year information. In a few minutes, Ronnie will pass all our presentation. The two major things that we can say about the last 6 months is that all the goals that we put for this time of the year, we can achieve them. If you remember the last meeting, we was just after signing a lot of projects in a lot of countries, and in the last 3 months, we could be able to finish them and collect all the money. So we are in a very good position inside the first half of the 2021 year. And the other issue is that in the last few months we make some change in the very small staff of management. And we have here with us Dor Sneh. He is the new CFO of the company.
Hello, everybody.
And we are the same team. We are going to have our goals for the next 6 months. The world is in a position that a lot of countries want to grow up with irrigation system. A lot of countries is making their move to have a safety food for the people that live in these countries. So we are in a very good position to do the goals that we put for ourselves, even for all the year and for the very soon quarter that we are working inside. So again, thank you, and Ronnie will give the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ohad. Good afternoon, or rather good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us to this webinar. As Ohad said, it's the second time we're presenting the results of the company, and we intend to do that every quarter. We'd like to thank everybody who joined us for taking the time to listen to the company. I'm an active director of the company, have been since the company went public and even before. I help the company with the strategic thought, management, mergers and acquisitions, and other corporate affairs. But let's start with a brief presentation of both the company and the numbers. Some of you may have seen it before, but for those who haven't, we'll start with the presentation. We are here to build a global leader for agriculture and irrigation, and we are focusing on high-value crops. The reason we're going for high-value crops is really because the farmer can pay more because he gets more for his crop. So we are targeting high-value crops such as strawberries, cherry tomatoes, cannabis, blueberries, cotton, and we'll discuss that during the presentation. We have many years of field experience in cultivation and irrigation. We are an Israeli provider of irrigation technology, and we are taking the knowledge that was experienced and developed in Israel and selling it around the world. We have over 4 customers in over 40 countries around the world. But let's just see what the highlights of the first half of the year were. This was an exceptional half year for Waterways. We have never experienced such growth in sales. We managed to have combined sales of 12 million Canadian dollars in the first half of the year, which was a growth of 78% from the sales of the same quarter last year. We had a non-GAAP EBITDA or an adjusted EBITDA of 10% and a positive cash flow, and we were able to raise about $4.4 million in a private placement in June and July. It was oversubscribed. We had a lot of investors join our journey into becoming a global provider of irrigation, and we want to thank the investors who put the confidence in us, and we'll discuss a little bit later about the cash and how much money we have to grow the company. If I look a little bit to the history of the company was started in 2003 by Ohad Haber. He has many years of experience in the irrigation business in Israel and in Latin America. In the thought of growing and building a global irrigation provider, we took the company public on the Toronto Stock Exchange on the venture in March of 2019. We raised $3.1 million, and we went into this journey in June, and we started a plan of mergers and acquisitions, growing the company. In June of 2019, we established our first foothold in North America. We acquired the assets of a Canadian irrigation. What's happening? We acquired the assets of Canadian irrigation distributor in south of London, Ontario, by the name of Heartnut Grove. We absorbed the company and its employees and its clientele into the Waterways Group, and we'll show later what a strong achievement we had by acquiring the assets of that business. We did the same sort of strategy in China, which is also a huge irrigation market, and we acquired the assets of our former distributor in China. And now we have a fully established Chinese subsidiary which sells directly projects to Chinese government and Chinese farmers. And in February of 2021, which is some of our strong growth, of course, we signed the largest irrigation project in the company's history. It was a cotton irrigation project in the Central Asian country of Uzbekistan, and the overall turnover of that project was 4 million Canadian dollars. And as I discussed before, the first half of the year finished with a very high growth in sales and a 10% adjusted EBITDA. And of course, we have cash in the bank from the offering that we finished in July. Now, the group, our headquarters, we are talking to you today from a kibbutz in Israel called Ramat David, which is in the northern part of Israel, where our corporate headquarters is. And we have a holding company, which is Canadian, and operating subsidiaries in China and Canada. And our plan is to go forward and establish subsidiaries in other parts of the world. And we have a very vast, good networks with our vendors, with people who manufacture for us, and we are able to sell their products worldwide. what is the market we're targeting? And I think and it's becoming evident that we are getting into one of the most important markets in the world. It's funny because I think all of us experienced this summer a heat wave around the world, flooding. The President of the United States declared the global warming as a hazard and a problem around the world. And what we see actually is the world becoming warmer and warmer every year. And because the world is becoming warmer and warmer, there's less rain and there's less water around the world. And because there's less water in the world, the old methods of flood irrigation and using water relentlessly and wasting it cannot go on. And farmers all around the world are looking for ways to use water in a more efficient way. And that leads us on our core competence and core technology. We're based in Israel, and Israel is a country where 70% of its land is desert. It's sand and desert. And Israel was established about 70 years ago, and it had a wave of immigration, and there was no other way but to use very sophisticated way to irrigate the land, to grow crops, and to feed the population. So in the last 50 years, agri-tech and smart irrigation were developed in Israel. And the principle is to use irrigation water in a very smart way, using the minimum water needed to irrigate plants in the most efficient way. If we look at it also, the basic fundamental technology is drip irrigation, which means, in simple words, is a hose is put into the field. Holes are put near the root of the plants, and water and fertilizers are dripped just to the root of the plant, which means that the plant gets really only the amount of water it needs to grow. And what years have taught us that this sort of irrigation system or irrigation technology also provides much higher yields on the field to the farmer to sell. So for a specific field, if you flood irrigate it or drip irrigate it, the drip irrigated field will yield much more crops than the flood irrigated. Therefore, we have a wide base, an ecosystem of agri-tech companies in Israel. There are over 300 agri-tech startup companies. Every year, about $800 million are invested in R&D of agriculture in Israel, with a country of 9 million. And we've exported around the world smart irrigation, robotics, drones, IoT system for the agriculture field. And we're really trying to bring much more technology to an old farming industry. The market, as I said in the beginning, the market we're targeting are high-value crops. And high-value crops means that these are crops which a specific area or specific fields yields much more dollars per acre than, let's say, wheat, barley, or any other low-value crops. So this is our niche in the market. This market needs technology, and we're looking at the total irrigation market around the world is about $20 billion. The smart irrigation market is anywhere between $2 to $4 billion, growing at an average rate of 8% a year. We think that market is growing is going to grow much, much faster in the coming years. And funny enough, we believe our target market of $3 to $4 billion, Israeli companies are dominant in that market. Companies like Netafim, like Rivolis, they are the giants of this market. And this market needs knowledge, and that is what we actually provide to the market. So we are spread actually through 2 continents right now. We will see other subsidiaries opened around the world. Our core business is still in Israel. We have an operating subsidiary in China, and we have our base for North America right now in Canada. We are selling very nice in the Canadian market right now. We did about $3.7 million of sales Canadian in the first half of the year. But we aim really, our focus in our market is all of North America. We haven't even penetrated the largest irrigation market in the world, which is the US market, and we intend to do so in the coming years. So we are going to have a few growth factors in the coming years. The first is, as I said before, subsidiaries around the world. The second is growing through acquisition, and that can be done in 2 parts. The first is, like we've demonstrated that we can do that very successfully, is acquire small irrigation distributors around the world, acquire their assets and incorporate them into the waterways group. But the other is acquiring manufacturing and technology, which is complementary to our products offering today. I'll describe a little bit projects which we have done in the last year. The first project that I'm going to discuss is probably the most high-tech project that we ever did, which is actually a cannabis irrigation cultivation project in Israel. The client was Cronus, the Canadian company, which is one of the 5 largest LPs around the world. The value of the project was about $500,000, and it was a challenging project because Israel, I don't know if you know, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the largest medical cannabis markets in the world. We have about 120,000 patients which are consuming medical cannabis legally. We're one of the first legal cannabis markets in the world. And Cronus put a big challenge. They wanted the most sophisticated cultivation facility in the world to be done in Israel, but they also wanted everything to be controlled from their headquarters in northern Ontario. So we delivered all the irrigation and illumination components of this cannabis cultivation facility, but we also delivered the brain of the system. So we uniquely for Cronus developed a special control unit which automatically controlled all the function of this cultivation facility. But not only that, it's a complete Internet of Things or IoT system, because the control itself is done from Cronus headquarters in Ontario, over the web, 4,000 miles to Israel. This was the first one, and following that project, we actually have today 5 of these projects around the world, and we'll continue seeing, I'm sure, the cannabis cultivation industry buying from Waterways this unique and very smart solution. I'm now going to turn and tell you about the largest project we did in the Central Asian country of Uzbekistan. The government of Uzbekistan put out a tender about 3 years ago. They wanted 2 things. They wanted to grow cotton in Uzbekistan. Cotton, as discussed before, is a high yield crop. But Uzbekistan, being in Central Asia, is a very arid land. Not a lot of water, and certainly not good rainfall in the seasons that water is needed. And they put a tender first to start with a very small test cotton cultivation facility, an irrigation project, a very small one. Do you remember what the size of this first project was in hectares?
The first one or the
The first one.
It was 350 hectares.
So about 350 hectares, which is roughly 35,000 square feet. Okay, which is relatively small. We finished this in 2018, 2019. The client was very happy. We received a larger project in 2019. And because of that experience and the very good work we did in that country and the know-how and the success of the cotton yield, we were given a very large project. Now it became 120,000 square feet of growing cotton. It's all drip irrigation, the same system that I described before. So the picture you see of the guy in the field, there are hundreds of yards of drip irrigation lines, which are dripping water and fertilizing. So they're both nursing the plant and feeding the cotton plant, in a very sophisticated way. And the cotton field, the yields are fantastic. Everybody's very happy. And our plans for 2022, 2023 is to enlarge that business in Uzbekistan. It's a target country for us. We're seeing a lot of sales and profits in a relatively only one crop. So we've gained a reputation for the company, and we can receive other projects in other fields as well. Let's go a little bit to some data about the capital structure. As I said before, we went for a private placement in May. We decided we need to raise capital for the company. And we actually were going to raise about $1.5 to $2 million, which we thought was enough for us. And we started the process with one broker in Canada. And we put out the stock was trading anywhere between 14 to 15 cents. I remind everybody today it's trading between 24 to 26 cents. And we saw that there is very good demand for our business and for the fundraising. So we actually raised not $2 million, but $4.4 million with a combination from investors, both from Canada, and about a third came from Israeli investors, which also believe in the company. And that brought us actually, this was oversubscribed. We finished with $4.4 million in the fundraising. I think the company net after commissions and a small legal fee was about four. So even our costs were very modest for this fundraising. We've experienced much higher costs in former fundraising. But that also is very interesting for us in our future, because we offered a unit, not a share. So on each share at 12 cents, there was a warrant attached at 18 cents. And that warrant has a forced conversion after 12 months if the stock is traded above 24 cents for a consecutive 10-day period. As we think, as the corporate management, what we believe today, these warrants are going to be exercised, which will give the company another $6.6 million in cash, and the 4.4 plus 6.6, which is $11 million net, of commissions, which are now only 4 because on the second tranche there aren't going to be any costs attached to that, gives us a broad spectrum of capital to substantiate our growth for future years, and I think it's very imperative that everybody understand that. So the company has a lot of cash to grow its business. So that brings me to the cap structure. We've grown from 100 million shares to 137 million shares. The warrants are the warrants. Most of the warrants are the warrants attached to the offering, and some warrants for employees and directors. So the fully diluted is about 184 million shares. Of that, inside ownership is about 40%, and the free float is about 60%. Management of the company, Ohad Haber presented himself. Doris, our new wonderful CFO. He's done a great job at the last audited financial statements, and he's hands-on day-to-day in the company. Our key management team is Amir Aylon, who's a VP of Operation and Project, and Tal Vayl, who's our head agronomist, Tomer Bracha, who's our CTO, the guys with the brains behind everything. We're missing one manager here, which is John Paul, the very successful manager of our Canadian subsidiary. We dearly appreciate the hard work he's put in the company and brought it from sales to the sales where it is today. The board is comprised of myself, Ohad, which is the chairman of the board. We have 3 other members, Yuda Duron, who's been with the board since inception. He has very many years of experience in the agriculture business. Today he runs a retail operation. Jane Planthier, who's the CEO of Mindset Pharma, which is traded, I think, on the Venture Order and CSE. James has extensive experience as a public company CEO and helps us a lot. Mindset Pharma is a very successful psychedelic company. And James Richardson, who's a CPA and has run the finances of many publicly traded companies. So let's discuss a little bit our financial results. I'll start with our 3 quarters, our quarter to quarter. You can see that revenues actually grew from 3.7 million Canadian dollars to 6.6. Gross profit grew from 579,000 to 1.1 million. We also improved the gross profit from 15.6% to 17.3%. The expenses grew from $757,000 to $950,000, but on an EBITDA level, we managed to bring the company to about a 10% adjusted EBITDA. The company had $4.2 million in cash. I think the amount today is much harder. It's much higher than what it was in the finish of the quarter because we've got some more funds. Some of the funds closed in July. I'm going to go to the next slide. And if we look at the total number of sales to that date, we started 2020 with the first half was about $5.5 million in sales, and the sales for the half year was $12 million. We did a lot of projects in that in this first half of the year. We did projects in Ethiopia. We discussed the project in Uzbekistan. We did some projects in Canada, the first one, a wrestling project in China. So all in all, I think the performance was very, very strong in the first half of the year. I would like also to say a little bit about a very unique project we announced about a month ago. It's the first time, almost the first time we did a small project like that before, but it's the first time that we are actually exporting know-how from Israel. So about a month ago, we're fortunate enough to sign a $900,000 project in the Asian country of Vietnam, and we're delivering know-how seeds, cultivation and irrigation project for the growing of dates in Vietnam. Israel is the best grower of dates, the mature date, which is the best thought date in the world, was developed and is growing massively in Israel. And a Vietnamese semi-government company came to us and asked us to provide a total project. We signed that project, and I hope it's one of many. And actually, this week we signed two contracts. The most important one of them is a $900,000 contract to deliver components, smart irrigation components for blueberries project in Peru. That was based actually on the know-how we acquired by delivering a blueberries project in China to Driscoll's, which is the largest blueberry grower in the world. So we're in really a good relationship and have absorbed a lot of knowledge in blueberries. So all in all, we have a very bright outlook for the company in the coming years. We have enough cash in the bank to sustain our growth. We have exceptional sales in the first half of the year, $12 million. We have $1.1 million of EBITDA. We're cash flow positive. And saying that, I'll turn a few minutes to some questions. If everybody has, I'd be happy to answer. And Ohad, Dora, and myself will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for that, Ronnie and Ohad. I appreciate going through that detailed presentation, as do, I'm sure, the many investors in here who have been watching and listening as well. There are some questions in here, and what I'd just like to say once again, we've got about a good 7 or 8 in here. Feel free throughout this, if you haven't heard something that maybe you're so curious about, there's still time to get your questions in there. We'll make sure that we get to them. The first question here is from Shanna Tova. Hope you had a good holiday. WWT is going great. I wonder if you can respond to any concerns about WWT meeting the demands for its services. What manpower is required for each contract signed? Thank you.
Currently, we're lean and mean. We have 24 employees in the company through all our business in Israel, Canada, and China. I don't think we have any problem in hiring or getting additional staff. There are enough engineers around, people who have experience in irrigation who would love to join the waterways team. We actually have people knocking on the door to join the team and bring in more experience and know-how.
Yeah, thank you for that. The next question is from Rogan. Do you have any thoughts on using your technology for indoor vertical irrigation projects?
That is, it's a complicated question. We've seen the growth of vertical cultivation around the world. It's still very, very niche and very, very small. It's very young. It's a young industry. We have contacts. We've been asked to quote. I'm sure we'll see some kind of business coming to us in that field. But you know, we're focusing on growth. We want to grow the company. The big business is in high yield crop irrigation, not yet in vertical cultivation.
Once again, appreciate for answering that question. The next one is coming from Jackson. Is there still a backlog of orders still from the COVID pandemic?
It's a like a good question, because I can guess that everybody know about the very hard situation to get raw material. So we are in a very special situation that we have a lot of things to ship, to close the materials that we need and to ship it for other countries. So it's go very slow, but from the other side, it's very big. We never had so much orders, so much asking about these materials that we normally work with, but the manufacturer are working slow. So from our one side, it's very good because we have a lot of logbook. From the other side, it's going very hard to ship it from Israel to other country. Everybody that in the meeting, I can guess, know that shipping is now not easy to find. It's very expensive, but the market was changing these 2 years. It's not nice to say it. It was changed good for us, but it changed. You have to find yourself how to work with the situation and the very unique situations that come because of COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine logistical issues that can arise from that. But judging from your last quarter, you guys have done very well from that. So you've been able to manage that very well. The next question is asking about expansion. Any expansion into the US do you have planned?
We certainly do have plans to expand in the US. I said in the presentation that the US is the largest smart irrigation in the world. We need to be there. We need a presence there. It will come in the next few years.
I want to say one thing more because some of the people that in the meeting was in roadshows when we present our view for the years to come. And then normally in the roadshow, I'm saying that if you want to be a very important company and take part of the big companies, you have to work in North America, Canada, and the US. So we are build ourselves to work in the US, and we do that from Canada, not from here, from Israel.
Yeah, great additional point. I appreciate that. The next question is from Wes. He asks, does management see itself getting into manufacturing at all in the future?
Wes, thank you for that question. Again, it's part of our plan. Once we have enough volume in the business, it would be natural that we would want to do some of the manufacturing for ourselves.
Gotcha. And once again, everyone who is attending, I appreciate it. I just keep seeing the more and more questions coming in. You can still get time in for that if you do have them. I love seeing those come in. The next question is from Bobby. Are there any revenues from the EMIAD system as yet?
It's a very, very special question because we work with EMIAD all over the world, but we were just signed in the last 3-4 months special contract that we are official representative of EMIAD in Canada. That give us a very unique situation that in our warehouse you can find EMIAD stuff, and not everybody have it. It's a very
very thought after product.
Yeah,
a lot technology.
Of people, a lot of growers looking for the EMIAD stuff, and we have it in our warehouse.
Absolutely. Thank you for that there. We'll continue going on to Alexi. Do you expect the same growth rate in the last half of this year?
I don't think we can provide right now forward-looking statements. Okay,
very fair.
So that's something that I think regulatory we can talk about. We're not giving any projections, but I can say we're having a good year.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll ask the questions just as they come in, as everyone knows, and then of course it's up to yourself if that's material news or not, which you just answered there. So I appreciate it. The next question is coming from Mark. He asked, "Is the Indian market on the company agenda?"
No. The people that know this part of what we are participating in India will know it's very hard to order. It's a very unique part of the world. A lot of small growers that make their buys in big companies that is already exist in India. So when we divide the world where we want to make our growth, India is not in this map.
Yeah, very fair answer there. This next question is coming from Aninda. They ask, can you please talk about WWT's competitive moat?
What is our competitive advantage in the market? Is that
I believe so. I haven't heard of the word moat before, but I would imagine competitive advantage or gusto.
That's an excellent question. Our competitors, which are relatively large companies, much larger than us, are manufacturers. Okay, so they have, even if they go for irrigation project, they have their manufacturing facility which they need to feed. And they're bound by a specific product. It could be a certain drip irrigation line, a certain filtration system, be it. And therefore, they will not always offer the best solution. The second thing is they're big companies and their focus is relatively large projects, say from $5 million American, so let's say 6 Canadian and onwards, could be 20 even, or 30, okay? Our focus is completely different. We are a systems house, okay? So we are not bound by a certain manufacturing technology, but we seek with our engineers and know-how to provide the best solution available for that field and for that crop. And that's how we win. Also, because we're a relatively small company, only 24 employees, we are going after relatively small projects between $500,000 to $4 or $5 million.
Even 10.
Even 10. That's fine. But we're in a business where competition, to be honest, is not fierce. Okay? So some of our competitors are also our vendors. And in some instances, we work together. But the real competitive advantage we have is that we're a systems house and not a manufacturer.
Gotcha. Thank you. The next question is from Rogan once again. Do you visualize a market opportunity for high-value vegetables?
High-value crops or high-value vegetables, sure, by all means. Can give you an example of a high-value vegetable is cherry tomatoes. We had some projects in that field. The cherry tomato was actually developed in Israel many years ago. It's an Israeli product that all of you are eating. It's a tasty tomato, but sure, of course.
I never knew that.
One of our colleagues from Mexico is buy a lot of stuff from us, and all that is for the tomato in a greenhouse.
Very nice, very nice. Appreciate that once again. This next question is coming from Bob. I wonder what percentage cannabis will be in the next couple of years. As more countries open up, do you see in-country deals or international import from, say, Canada?
I'm not sure what the question is. We are not in the cannabis cultivation business. We're just in the cannabis irrigation and systems house business. So I'm not sure what the question was.
I'm not too sure either. Bob, if you're still watching, if you want to reword that in any way, I'll be sure to come back to that question because I might be read it as is there.
I think I can put some words for that. From one side, cannabis will not be very, very large cultivation all over the world. It will be very niche and very necessary places that people will learn to work it very, very good. And for us, it will be every time more and more business working with the people that need to management this crop. Not a lot of knowledge yet, and not a lot of companies that have this knowledge. And we are one of the companies that is getting this knowledge. We're working that here in Israel and in few countries more. So we became to be one of the companies that got more and more experience and more knowledge, but it will not be like people that make tomatoes. More business will be with tomatoes and not with cannabis. But for us, it's a growth cultivation that we are participating.
Yes, absolutely there. Well, I'm going to go with the next question here. It's from Margaret. How many full-time personnel is there? How do you manage the growth for these new projects and at the same time expand your global footprint? What is the boots on the ground plan to expand in the US? And have you had any current contacts with government versus private enterprise? I can ask that question again and halfway through if you didn't get all of that. But essentially, how many personnel do you have and how do you manage growth? And we'll go to the second part of the question after.
Okay, so we have 24 full-time employees around the world, in China, Israel, and in Canada. Right now, that is exactly the number we need for the growth, for the current business we have now. There is no shortage of people in the world to employ to grow our business. So let's say we double our business in a few years. There's no problem doubling the amount of employees for the company.
Beautiful.
Think of it, we're very efficient. We run half a year, $12 million business with 22 people. I don't want to give any forward-looking statements, but it's an efficient business. Okay, so but there's no problem in getting good personnel. I don't see any problem in substantiating our growth.
Thank you once again for that. The second aspect of that question, it may be too much information, but I'll ask it nonetheless. What are the boots on the ground plans? What is the boots on the ground plan to expand in the US? And have you any current contacts with government versus private enterprise?
Let's talk about the US first. We'll try in 2022 through our Canadian subsidiary to open the market in the US. In other years, we'll probably establish our own business in the US, be it a subsidiary, be it an acquisition, or any of this sort. Okay, and also the US is not the US. There's a difference in working in the western part of the US, in the northwestern part of the different states have different needs. California is not like Georgia. Washington State is not like New York State. So each state that I've mentioned is a very large state. Each grows crops, but each has a really different need in the technology we deliver. So even if we start with a foothold, let's say in Washington State, which is very near to Canada, or say in New York State, which is near to Ontario, the solution will be different, and it could be even a sales subsidiary for a specific area in the United States. I don't think. Do we have any government tenders? I don't recall.
Yes, few of them, but normally we are not the kind of companies that win these tenders. But time to time we participate in Ethiopia, in other countries we participate, but it's very hard to be the ones that win them.
Absolutely. Thanks again once again for that answer there, guys. This next one's coming from Tom. I know you already have spoken about this topic a couple of questions now, but there's a unique twist to this. I'll ask nonetheless. You identified cannabis as a key growth driver. Is this still your outlook? Are you concerned about oversupply?
Not really. Cannabis has become a growth driver for us. However, other crops are even larger growth drivers in the coming years. I've discussed blueberries, strawberries, other crops. Cotton has for sure surpassed cannabis in our growth. So, but we will see as the cannabis industry grows and we have a very unique solution for cannabis, we will see more and more cannabis projects in the world, but I don't think we'll accept it. I don't think it will surpass 5 to 7% of our business ever.
Perfect. Well, the next question I'm going to be asked is from Aninda again. Would you consider irrigation-related analytics and data insights as a revenue stream in the future? These are high-margin streams that can also be positioned as competitive advantages competitive advantage products that make it difficult for customers to move to competitors.
What was the question? If we'll go into data and analytics?
Would you
data,
consider?
Of course,
Yes.
of course we will. It's part of our business. It's becoming part of the daily business of farmers around the world, and we will be part of that industry in one way or another.
Thank you. Our second last question for today, unless another one pops in, is from Rogan once again. He goes, "Is a tomato a vegetable?" And laughing at that. Thanks for the webinar and thanks for answering our questions. All the best going forward. Really enjoy watching your company succeed. P.S. Thanks for the food. So that just shows that these questions are coming in live because I asked it as a question. It was actually a statement. But thank you, Rogan. I appreciate it, as I'm sure they do as well. There is one last question then. It's from Milan, and it's a great one to end off with because it's talking about, what are the areas of opportunity coming up for you? And he's basically just asking, what are your biggest challenges to grow? I'm assuming to grow the company.
Right.
I want to take this question because I'm very happy that Milan is with us. He's a great person that I'm very glad he's here. But to give the answer, we take it like 3 years ago that our growth will be in North America and will be in Canada. But in this year, we have a lot of opportunities that come in Uzbekistan, opportunities that come in Greece, Portugal, other countries that know to do agriculture and push us with participation in this country. But our main goal is to be in North America. We begin in Canada. We're going to do more subsidiary in Canada. And from there, we have our information about the market in USA.
Beautiful. And we do have one more question from Alexi. I almost missed it there, but they ask, congratulations on entering South America market with Peru project. What about Argentina, Brazil, and other countries in South America? Are there any plans to establish a wholly owned subsidiary there?
I will take this question. First, I was working a lot in these countries. I'm speaking Spanish. Hola por todos los amigos que nos acompañan y hablan español. But it's different countries. We decided not to work in Brazil, as I mentioned, India. A lot of difficulties for other countries to work in Brazil because tax and other issues. I will not speak about these issues. So if you not mention Brazil, we are working in Argentina, we are working in Chile, we are working in Peru with a lot of presentation, with a lot of success. We like these markets, even love these markets, and we are working a lot in this. And there will be the time we are looking to somebody to be our partner there, but we didn't find it yet. We have a few conversations, but nothing was growth like we could grow in the North of America.
Just to give some numbers, there must be a little bit of misunderstanding. We have a traditional business in Peru. Actually, Waterways was selling to South America probably since inception. So we have a very good presence in Peru and other countries in South America. Just for anybody's understanding, Sales to South America, to Peru, were about $2 million in the first half of the year. So about 15% of our business comes every year from South America.
Yeah, very nice, and I appreciate for getting there. I'm glad, Alexi, you messaged me because I'm glad that we got that question asked. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you both, Ronnie and Ohad, for your time to go through this presentation, to take all these questions from investors, but also for all the investors who stayed through this hour-long presentation, all the questions that came in. I love seeing that. I love seeing active investors. Ronnie and Ohad, I'm going to pass it over to you for closing remarks, and then we'll end for today. But I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who took part today.
Yeah, yes. Thank you for everybody to be in this conversation. Hope you can come from the next one. Like Ronnie said, we're going to do it like 4 times a year, every 3 months. And I hope we have a good result as the same as we present now. Thank you.
Okay, we also want to really thank all the investors. First of all, everybody who has attended today and listened to our story. But we really want to thank all our employees, our board members, and the investors who put the trust in us. We really appreciate it. We will do everything to make this a success, and actually to create shareholder value in the company. And we really appreciate everybody who participated in the last offering. So thank you very much. It's the beginning of the Jewish New Year. We wish everybody Shana Tova. Tomorrow is the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, where God tells us what our verdict is for the year. You say in Hebrew, Chatima Tova. And thank you, everybody, for participating.
Absolutely. Well, very exciting, guys. Lots of
Thank you, brother.
Thank you very much. You've been our star.
Absolutely. And for anyone who's still listening and watching as well, shortly, probably about tomorrow or so, anyone who registered, you will get a copy of this recording. So if you came in halfway through, if you want to rewatch something, anything like that, you will have that opportunity. It'll get emailed to the email that you use to sign up. So I want to thank everyone once again for your time. Ronnie and Ohad, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day as well as we end that webinar for today.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
John
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.